if I may have your attention, please. At this time, we're going to begin the funeral service here in our chapel for Mrs. Zlota Burd. As we begin the service, I would ask if any of you might have a cell phone or any other noise-making device, please turn them off at this time. Officiating the service here today is Rabbi Aron Wolf.
We'll begin with the 23rd Psalm, which you can also find in your folder that you received, the English translation. You will be honored to have Rabbi Levi Notik say the 23rd Psalm.
מזמר לדוד, אדינוי ראי לא יחסור. בנס דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחס ינהלני. נפשי ישבב ינחני, ומגלי צדק למען שמוי. גם כי אלך בגיא צלמוות לא ירא, כי אתה עמודי. שבתך משענתך המה ינחמוני. תארך לפני שולחן נגד צוררוי, דישן טוב השמן ראשי כסיר ואויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני לערך ימים. A psalm by David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall lack nothing. He lays me down in green pastures, he leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul, he directs me in paths of righteousness for the sake of his name. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they will comfort me. You will prepare a table for me before my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup is full. Only goodness and kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for many long years.
We are gathered here today to pay tribute, to bid farewell, to say goodbye to a very, very special neshama. No better way to describe Zlata. Just a very unique, special Yiddish neshama. Zlata spoke about her funeral. She mentioned it more than once, but we never knew it's going to happen that soon. It's only because of the few conversations I had with her that I'm standing here today. Rabbi Wolf, I want you. Okay. She made it very clear what she wants. But nevertheless, she was a fighter. She was a fighter her whole life. And she even fought the last, was it 2 months or 3 months that she was in hospice? She was 3 months. She was fighting it and fighting it. I can't tell you how many times I visited her and I said Vidui and Shema again and again. Sie will nicht sterben. Ist nicht. That's okay. We want you here. Rosh Hashanah, Erev Rosh Hashanah, about 5 p.m., about an hour or so before Yontif, I said to myself, let me go and see how Zlata's doing. I walked in. At that point, she was no longer responsive. But I said Shema with her again, and I was hoping that the next day, Efshe Kemenach Blozen Shayfer. And there's someone in the building who she knew almost everyone in the building, and everybody knew her. There was one particular young man who he blew the shofar for others that live in the building. And I asked him, please go into apartment 606 and blow the shofar. And he reported back to me. He did. He blew the shofar. And as I said, she was a fighter. I got to know her. I knew her for many, many years. I knew her when her husband was alive. Actually, unfortunately, I happened to be in the hospital when her husband passed away. But I really got to know her the last 10 to 15 years. She was a regular in the Chicago Mitzvah campaign when we were on Tui Avenue. She had her reserved seat, and no one would dare take that chair because that's Zlata's reserved seat. And why she sat at that particular place? Because it's close to the one who gives the class or whatever was going on, so she can hear well. She relied on us for many, many things. And I never wanted to take anything from her. I'll never forget. She called and she said, my vision is getting really poor. I can barely see. I think she was legally blind for a number of years. I need someone to help me with my mail. I get the mail. I don't know which is the bills and what are the letters and what is exactly what. Just help me sort it out. And I said, we'll do it, but remember, we're not taking anything from you. We'll just do it because we want to help you. But she couldn't help herself. Guess what she gave that person? Some borscht. This is borscht that I made. You have to take it. So they got borscht in return for helping her. She was a very, very special individual. I'm not going to talk about her life in Russia. I'm sure you'll hear that later on. But she many, many times spoke about her Mesiras Nefesh. I can probably clearly say without any hesitation that she was a Balas Mesiras Nefesh. In Russia, she told stories upon stories how she gave her children to eat and how they survived and what she had to do. I'm not going to get into details. You'll probably hear that later. And then when she came to the United States, she became very involved with the Russian community, which again you will hear from Rabbi Notik. And then later on, she got involved with Rabbi Demarsky. You'll hear that later on. But she loved doing chasodim. She loved, what can I do to help? Tell me, what can I do to help? And as difficult as it was for her, I have to come and help. You know, every single week, we prepare packages for all the hospitals in Chicago. Every Jewish patient gets a package, challah, grape juice. She made sure she has to be there. She almost like took charge. Every Thursday morning, she has to be there, and she has to prepare and make the packages, and we shouldn't dare start without her being there because she's in charge. She loved doing it. She loved helping. Whatever she can do to help out, she was always there. Not that we had to ask her, but she was always ahead of us, a step ahead. I know you're doing this and this. I'm ready. Two devastating events took place in her life that I can recall. Again, the earlier years, different story. One of them, of course, was the loss of her husband, Reb Simcha, who was so dedicated. He used to go daven on a regular basis, and she used to make sure he gets up, he goes to shul, he comes home. And it was an amazing couple. That really took a big hit. And unfortunately, more recently, the loss of a grandson. This, I don't think she ever recovered. And as understood, always talking about it. And what we can do, and she made one memorial, another memorial. I remember she came to us and she said, Oy vey, there's a bar mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael. Remember that? I think, Leonard, you went to the bar mitzvah. There was a bar mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael, and I cannot be there. And she felt terrible because her health did not allow it. And I said, it's not a problem. We'll make a hookup. And I remember Rabbi Daish was here today, was there, and his wife. And we had a hookup where she was able to sit there. We have that picture till this very day, where she sat there and she watched the bar mitzvah taking place in Yerushalayim HaKodesh, and she was here. That was one of the best things we can do for her. She didn't have to eat breakfast or lunch that day. She was satisfied with what she saw. She had a lot of friends in her building. They loved her, always looked out for her, knocked on the door, Zlata, do you need anything? This, that, the other. I know from speaking to many of them, and she used to tell me that it was very good for her. Rather than living alone in an apartment or in a building somewhere, she was in a building, and she was surrounded with many, many friends. To tell you how much she loved my staff and our organization, when we build a new building, she says, Rabbi Wolf, I have to give you something. Zlata, I don't need anything. When you feel good, you'll be able to come and visit yourself. Now you have to come to me, I have to give you something. I had to refuse a few times, but I finally went. What did she give me? I'm giving you this bowl. I ask you to put it on your desk. Okay? I didn't plan on having that bowl on my desk, but it's there till this very moment. She said to me, it's very important for me that you take this bowl that I always had over here on my dining room table, and now it should sit on your desk. I want you to always have it. I guess she always wanted, when I walk into that office, I should have something there to remember her. And I do. I always remember Zlata, all the things that she had to offer, and always with a smile, ready to give, and once in a while, ready to take, but more give than take. It's a short day today. It's Erev Shabbos. I would like to call Rabbi Shmuel Notik, a longtime friend and rabbi of Zlata, to please address us. Followed by Rabbi Demarsky.
Hard to speak about Zlota Burd of the past. She had a nature, a tendency to be a part of your life. The moment she came from the Soviet Union before we came to Chicago, and she stayed with us throughout life. She personally knew not only myself, but my entire family, and everyone with the kids, their birthdays, and continued to be a friend for life. Rab Simcha, her husband, Olav Shalom, was davening with us every day, and it was really beautiful to see how they're an example to be a couple. They always looked out for each other. And every day from Rab Simcha I heard about Zlata, and from Zlata I heard, if not every day, every other day, should be in our office and always share something. What's very interesting is that she knew every member in the shul, and everyone was on her mind. And as soon as the person came off the boat, sort of came to Chicago, she was there to help us, finding for the person furniture, clothing, a job. She was involved in everyone's life. And often I gave her a lift, we went somewhere together, it was always on her mind, this person, that person, their need, their struggles. It was just exceptional to see a real Eishes Chayil, a true Yiddish mama, Bobbe, Elter Bobbe. I knew everything. She would share with me about every grandchild. and about every struggle and about every success, whatever the grandchildren had, it was on her mind, and she shared it with us. What's important, I believe, is to remember what it says in the Gemara, "V'hacha yitin alibei," that the living has to take it to his heart. It says about tzaddikim, and v'amech kulam tzaddikim, that the righteous people live in two worlds, in the world that there are after their passing, and in this physical world. How so? By their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And she truly is that person, because she was zeicha, she had the merit to see great-grandchildren that are involved in Torah and mitzvahs, and just amazing, Gershon, Greg Oliver Shalom. And we learned together afterwards. He ended up to be in Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim, and he was like his grandmother. He was always involved. He would come sometimes back to Chicago. He would tell me he's involved with this yeshiva, that yeshiva, and I look at him and saying, "You're like your grandmother Zlata." It's just a copy. It's just so beautiful to see. And that's truly a real schus for you, Leonard, and Mrs. Leonard, to see that the quality of the generations continue, and even to children, grandchildren, and I hear the great-grandchildren have also that tendency. May she be a good Tibetan, and the fact that her passing was on a service in tshuva, and tshuva means always rising to higher and higher levels, and your children, grandchildren, are truly an example how they are picked up the qualities of your mother. May she be a good Tibetan, that you and your grandchildren, the entire mishpacha, should only know of brachas and yeshuas.
We knew her as Teta Lila. We heard Zlata, but that's how we knew her in our shul, Teta Lila. And we all knew what role she played in raising Leonia Efira, what place she occupied in the hearts of her family, Bella and Fima, Lorianne, Jessica, Fiona, Ilana, and of course we knew how close she was with Gershon. But it's not only a personal family loss, it's a loss for our entire Russian Jewish community. She was a grandmother that we never had, and her war stories resonate in our memories forever. Her Rabbi Wolf mentioned borscht, her cooking skills. Once, or more than once, when she would sponsor a kiddush, she would tell me, go to North Shore Bakery and tell them to make a cake the way Lilia makes it. Tell them the way Lilia makes it. Or when we invited her once for Pesach and we served borscht, she said, Rabbi Demarsky, you call this borscht? Call me after Yontev, I'll teach you how to make borscht. And she would give criticism, but you would never be offended, because to take criticism from her was an honor. It was an honor. Rabbi Wolf mentioned she was legally blind. She could see through people. Once she was in shul, and we had guests from out of town in our community, and she looked across the room, and she's, "Who is this?" I said, "It's a lady, family visiting." She's like, "Nicht Yiddish, not Jewish." I'm like, "Mrs. Burd, she's from, no shaitel, not Jewish." Later I find out she was Miss Geyer. I would never know. I would never know. She had an eye. She would look at any woman in our shul and say, "She's pregnant." She would tell my wife. And I'd say, "Tita Lili, we didn't tell people yet." But she knew. She had a vision. She could look through. And all those skills, she would give brochas to people. Only she knew how to give a brocha. She would love to give brochas to people in our shul. And her healing hands, she was able to heal people, and she did it more than once, and she was very proud. So many things that go through memory, through so many years. And again, being her and knowing her, I can almost hear her listening to us, to me, and saying, "Rabbi Demarsky, that's all you have to tell about me?" And I have to say, Tita Lila, even 100 people speaking will not be enough, to tell who you really were and to tell what part in our hearts you occupied. Everyone in our community loved you, and everyone, every single person, every single member of our shul will miss you deeply. Mrs. Burd also, she was not just only a grandmother that we never had, she was a symbol of a Yiddishkeit. Like she incorporated, internalized. It was something that many of us didn't have in our shul. Her Judaism wasn't that something she read from books. It was how she was raised and how she lived, and that integrity was a really big example for all of us. She was honest, she was straightforward, and she always, like it was shown, we always see, and it was a model, it was a role model, example to follow for all of us. And today that we're holding between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and we know that tzaddikim nechtomim lealter, lechaim, and lechaim doesn't only mean physical life or physical death. And I believe that everybody who knew Tita Lila would agree that tzaddikas like her, she was nechtam right away to eternal life. May her memory be a blessing.
A lot of people. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Really appreciate it. Sorry, my sister couldn't come. She just, a few days ago, she had pneumonia in Los Angeles. She could not travel. Her daughter, Lulana, was going to come. In the last minute, her child had a serious ear infection, high fever. Lulana could not come. Fiona is also tied up in Paris. So I'm speaking here for the close family. At first, right away, I want to thank the community for tremendous reception and acceptance of my mother. It was extremely important for her. Each one of you played a tremendous role and enhanced her life and made her life much better by inviting her, by talking to her, by listening to her stories, by giving her your stories. She enjoyed it very, very much. I want to take, in addition, Chicago Mitzvah campaign. She spent with you the last 10, 15 years. She went there for lunches. 4 days a week. 1 day a week she went to do the packing. She looked forward to it. She loved it. She mingled with people. When she got older, her caregiver was coming with her, and they didn't mind it at all. And that was amazing. Thank you so very much. When we came in 1977, my father found free the synagogue. My mother joined him, and they stayed there. Later on, when she became alone and she couldn't walk anymore farther, she started walking to Rabbi Damarsky's shul, spent there another 10 years, and I want to thank every one of you very much. I want to thank, if I could spend a whole day listing names, but just, I will say 2 names, and please forgive me, whoever else I'm not mentioning. I ask forgiveness because hundreds and hundreds of you helped to make your life better, but just 2 people that I will mention, and this is Lena Kachkova and Galina. They're both longtime friends. Lena had her every Shabbat and every lunch. Lena had her over. Only times when somebody else insisted that she would come, then she wouldn't come to Lena. That's amazing. For 10 years, she enjoyed the company, the meals. She had a place to go for Shabbat, and we're very grateful to you, Lena. Thank you so much. Galina, you provide her emotional company. You were a friend for more than 30 years. We're grateful to you, too. Emma, the caregiver, she spent with her probably close to a year. She was amazing. Emma, where are you? Emma does, thank you very much for all your help. Emma does not speak English, so I'll tell her in Russian. Спасибо вам огромное. So, what can I say about my mother? It's, people have hobbies, collect this and that, things and stuff. My mother collected people. That was her hobby. She got to know people, talked about their problems, tried to help them. That was her goal. Every new person she approached, she found out about them. If she told them their story, it's because they wanted to teach them how to survive hardship. Like a spring of energy, she was helping everybody. Tzaddikim say that if you have a good friend, you need to do everything to keep him. Bribe him, buy him lunches, talk to him, apologize if you're offended. My mother was the best. She knew how to keep friends, and we should learn from that. May her neshama have an aliyah. Thank you.
Lorianne.
Thank you all for being here. When my grandma was first put into hospice care, I was blessed to be able to spend a good amount of time with her. She was fluttering between worlds, but one afternoon when I asked her if she would like more flowers, she responded with a vehement yes. The next morning we walked into her home with a lot of flowers. And she looked at me and she said, "So, now you have nothing else to spend money on?" That was my grandma. She was funny. She was self-deprecating. She was very mischievous. My grandma had a hard life. She experienced many traumatic events. And she lived a life profoundly affected by that trauma. But she loved. She really loved. And she showed her love with food and with worry and with food and with worry and with food and with worry. And she always said, "I love you." Even when she could barely speak, she always still found a way to muster an "I love you." And she loved you. She loved all of us. My grandma was a mover and a shaker, a fountain of energy. She worked hard her entire life, and she fought for all of us. We're here because of her. She prayed for all of us, and she wanted the best for all of us. She was not your ordinary grandma. But I'll never forget how when she was managing the kitchen at Park Plaza, she delighted me with endless supply of those weird little baby corn, those tiny baby corn. And I'll never forget her taking me to the pool at the JCC. And I'll never forget that precious moment in late June when I asked her how she was feeling, and she said, "Like a beautiful flower." I'm so grateful to this community for taking such good care of my grandma. Я очень благодарная Эмочки, Леночки и Галечки. Спасибо большое за все. We will remember my grandma always through our actions, because she lived through her actions. Through acts of hesed, by helping the people in our community, by stepping up to help, maybe even when we're not asked to help. Through food and to showing our love for each other through food. And by always saying, "I love you." Thanks.
Like Rabbi Wolf said, for the last 5 years, Grandma has been telling me, "Shmulik and my Levaya, you're going to blow everyone away." So unfortunately, I thought I had another 27 years to prepare, but I'm also here representing Grandma's daughter, Fira. I have something from her, as well as her two granddaughters, Fiana and Zlana. From Fira, she wrote a poem. "I thought of you today, but that is nothing new. I thought about you yesterday and days before that too. I think of you in silence, I often speak your name. All I have are memories and your picture in a frame. Your memory is a keepsake from which I'll never part. God has you in your arms, in his arms, and I have you in my heart. I will always love you, my dearest beloved mommy." From Fiana in Paris. "Just 3 years ago, I was saying a few words at my grandma, or as the grandkids call her, Babula, 90th birthday party. It is surreal for me to fully integrate that she is no longer with us on this earth. But one thing I know for sure, however, is that she still is with us in soul and spirit. A woman with so much energy and strength surely will stay with us forever. And while my sadness is deeper than I can ever put in words, I know that all the love that she poured into me since birth and that she continually gave to all her kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids will flourish always. She remains a role model and a woman that, while having a tough life, also managed to find joy and laughter. I would like to remember that part of her too, that like when she came to Paris and enjoyed the restaurants, loved the Eiffel Tower, the country club, visiting parks with her great-grandkids, and of course cooking for us. Food was always her way of showing love, and there was never enough of that. So today, I honor not only my grandma, but also the other parts of her, the incredible woman she was and will always be in my heart. May she rest in peace. All our love from our Paris family, Fiana, Fabian, Theo, and Elliot. We are very sad not to be able to join you in all our honor, but we will be with you in spirit." And from Zlana, "Grief is the price we pay for love. My grandmother, Babula, forever holds a special place in my heart. I'm heartbroken to not be there today in person, for this, but unfortunately, my young children are recovering from being sick and they need me at home with them in Los Angeles. Babula led a purposeful life full of suffering and hardship that she strengthened from, and a life also so full of richness of meaning, community, friendship, and generosity. She was the eternal problem solver, and worrying about us was her love language. She was the loving arms of hugs that would never let go. She was the voice always saying, you need to eat more. Here, more piroshki. Did I say that right? More piroshki. Everyone became a dear friend to her, and she was an energizer bunny who would never want to stop, and the voice of support no matter what the issue was. Above all, she made me and my family feel loved unconditionally, and that is a feeling we will forever cherish. We are grateful to have so many memories that will keep her alive for us in all our days. I'll never forget her meeting my husband for the first time before we were married at a stopover in Chicago. Somehow, she was able to find the one Romanian TSA agent to let her through to our gate without any proper clearance, brought the most random assortment of gifts, which was her specialty, including tie clips, socks, a pair of shorts, a wide-brimmed hat, homemade pierogi, and then proceeded to convince my Canadian-American husband to lie on a bench at the gate in order to show him our massage skills from back in the day. Needless to say, he passed the test with flying colors. Babula, you're a pinnacle of perseverance, of generosity, of community, and of family. With you goes the last of a generation so profoundly resilient and giving, and we will continue to weave your devotion and important lessons throughout the generations that follow as your everlasting legacy. With eternal love, Elisha, Joel, Ethan, Ava, and Ella. I'm also here representing Grandma's Sadekas. She calls her angel, Jessica. And Bereshus all the Rabbanim and Tzaddikim in the room. The moment I met Grandma, she right away took me in as one of the family. Jessica described to me in the car as we were going to meet her is that she's the grandma that will literally take off a shirt from her back if you needed one. And how true that was. Her whole life was giving, whether it was to her family, her kids, her grandkids, her great-grandkids, or to her friends, or as a profession. Her favorite, as Lorianne mentioned, was her job at Park Plaza, feeding hundreds of people a day. And all of it was done with so much love. The love was palpable. If she made a dish, no matter what dish it was, she made sure that imbued in it was all of her love when she gave it to you. There's a mashal, a parable, that describes very well our time in this world. The parable is a factory with a chain of workers all at a table with a ball of clay. And they have 1 hour to shape that ball of clay into whatever they would like. And after the hour, it gets hardened, and that's all they get to keep. So as soon as this time starts, everyone starts shaping the clay. Some people start immediately, and they have a vision. They start molding it to exactly the way they want it. Some people start after 10 or 20 minutes, either being lazy or not sure where to begin. As the time goes on, some are putting in fine details, while others are leaving it more plain. Everyone is working on their clay. Some workers' clay falls to the floor, and they have to rebuild it. Some spend their time schmoozing, and they let the time fly by. Then there's Grandma Bird. Grandma would take her ball of clay and start breaking it off piece by piece and start giving it to everyone else in the room, forcing it into their hand, making sure that everyone else has enough for them, and giving brachos as she gives it to them. Grandma was an exceptional person. She lived through unfathomable hardships, but her strength, her immovable will, and her passionate resolution made her legendary. Everyone who knew Grandma understood this. I think Rabbi Wolf mentioned that we all thought that everyone was going to start talking about the stories, and so each one of us didn't mention them, but at Shiva there'll be plenty of time to talk about your stories. Even the walls knew to move aside when her ambitions were charging through. Her generosity, care, and interest in people and perseverance were seen throughout her life. Living through Russian oppression and exile in Siberia, hunger and poverty, immigrating to America in her 50s and courageously landing a job, learning a new language, adapting to this country, daring and unashamed, koshering her kitchen in her 70s and adopting the frum lifestyle, going door to door collecting for Gershon's yeshiva, developing a network of friends, best friends, in the frum community of all ages and all styles of life. And she thrived off giving to others. Jessica and I were so fortunate to be able to live nearby and see the life of Grandma's later years up close. We have so much appreciation and admiration for all the tzaddikim and tzaddikesses that visited, called, and helped Grandma over these years. There's too many to name, as my father-in-law tried, and Jessica and I are always in awe of the humility and kindness of all of you. Over the last 3 months, as her body declined, she was often confused and wasn't clear to understand, but the first thing that she said with such clarity and conviction, which really shares her essence, as Lorianne said, was that I love you. She loved all of you deeply and had so much gratitude. She was Maker Tov, and she emphasized it. Back at the clay factory, the time was up, and everybody wanted to show their appreciation back to Grandma and give a beautiful present in return. So now, this is our chance to give you the greatest eternal gifts, all of the Mishnayos and the Gemara that we're going to learn in your honor, all of the davening and the tzedakah that will be given to you for you in your honor. Your son will be taking you to the greatest heights by saying Kaddish 3 times a day, and the tikkun we will do on the day of your yahrzeit, we will make sure gives you a lot of nachas. On behalf of the family, we ask you for forgiveness for any wrong we have done. On behalf of the family, we would like to ask forgiveness for any wrong we have done to you, but I know that you will be Melitz Yosher for the family. You'll storm the heavens, storm the gates to help all of your loved ones and all of Klal Yisrael and bring the Gula Shlema B'karov. B'olam Avos L'netzach M'acha Adonai Elohim V'moed Ma'al Kol Panim.
It's already after Chatzos, after midday on Fridays, so we do not recite the traditional Kelmol Rachmim. But I want to conclude with one point. We heard a lot about, and we'll hear more about Zlata and all the tremendous chesed she did, the kindness. I want to suggest something. And, we'll never forget her. The family, you, your sister, the children, grandchildren, never forget a mother like Zlata and a grandmother. But what can we do? That's the question we have to ask ourselves, and you alluded on that. What can we do to remember her on a regular basis? So you said, Shnayis, Gemara, Chasodim, but sometimes we have to be a little bit more, Benagel Apel, Benagel Amaisa, like what? So I would like to suggest, if there's anyone in this room who does not traditionally, any woman in this room, does not traditionally light candles every single Friday before sunset, as the custom is to light the candles 18 minutes, 20 minutes before sunset, it's okay. The Talmud says it's okay to do a mitzvah and say, I'm doing it in honor of someone. It's perfectly okay to light the candles, although it's a mitzvah to do it, but you can light it and say, in addition to the mitzvah, I'm doing it in memory of my friends, my neighbor, my relative, Zlata, her official name, her Hebrew name is Zlata Bas Yitzchak, and it's okay for you to do that. Whether you do it once, and especially if you can do it more often. This month, there are so many opportunities to light candles. Next week, before Yom Kippur, and then goes Shabbat again, and then Sukkot, and Shmini Atzeres, and Chastorah, we have numerous times to light candles, and you'll see, it'll be so wonderful that you'll want to continue doing it. And for the men, again, whatever mitzvah you can think of, take upon yourself that mitzvah, and then, all of a sudden, it's no longer just memories of the past, but she comes home all of a sudden. I know, and I feel Zlata, because I'm doing something right now in her memory. It's not just the past, but it's the present and the future. And we should continue only celebrate happy and joyous occasions, and her memory should be a blessing for the whole mishpacha. And the Neshama should have an aliyah. She should be a Melitza Yesha for the whole mishpacha and for the extended family and for all of her friends and ganz Klal Yisrael.
This concludes the service here in our chapel. The interment will take place immediately at the family's plots at Memorial Park Cemetery, 9900 Grosse Point Road here in Skokie. Following the interment, the family will be sitting a traditional week of Shiva at the Burd residence, 6933 North Kedzie Avenue, Unit 606 in Chicago. That information's on the funeral service folder you should have received. For those of you watching the service online, this information is on the website you are currently on. I'd also like to point out to those in attendance and those watching online that the family has asked that memorial contributions in Mrs. Bird's name be made to the Chicago Mitzvah Campaign. That information's on your funeral service folder here, and again, for those watching online, that information is on the website you are currently on. For those of you joining with the family and going in procession, the procession will be forming in our parking lot. Please make sure you obtain an orange funeral safety sticker. You should place that sticker in the front passenger side of your windshield. We would also ask that you please have your bright headlights and flashing hazard lights on at all times. For an additional measure of safety, our staff will be placing magnetic flags on the tops of the vehicles throughout the procession. It's a short trip to the cemetery today, but please drive as close as safety permits to the vehicle in front of you at all times. We want to avoid having any large spaces or large gaps in the procession, especially as we pass through the intersections. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise as the deceased and family are escorted from the chapel. And I would ask if there are 6 Jewish men in attendance that can assist as pallbearers, please step forward. Thank you.